campus. Fun fact, anyone listening to this who knows baseball stats and how baseball works will probably question how this happened, but 3 for 3 with a home run, a double, 4 ribbies, 2 runs scored, and a stolen base, and essentially making right field a no-fly zone where I scooped up everything that went my way for the most part. Got cut from the roster. I had to pack my bags up, go home. Supposedly they might come crawling back to me later, and if they do, well, I got the 35ers. I don't need them. They wanted me. Well, they would have clearly taken me if they wanted me. So that's behind me. I still got my beautiful baseball bag right around the corner here off screen, but that's besides the point. But in the world of baseball, the wild card round has started. Well, I love what baseball has turned the wild card round into. There are still some flaws that baseball has with this whole concept. On the first one, here's the obvious flaw. A first pitch at 1300 hours or 1 o'clock. I think that was Eastern time. But you get my point. In the middle of the afternoon on a Tuesday when most people are working, that's not exactly the time to watch. The NFL, for example, could schedule a game that starts at 1200 hours, 12 o'clock, our time here on a Tuesday afternoon, and they would probably run into the same problem everyone else does when you schedule a sporting event for that time of day. People aren't going to be able to watch because they're working. Or in my case, in a college classroom, but that's besides the point. However, from what it looks like, I missed an absolute gem of an outing by Tyreek Skubal. He went 7 2/3 with 1 run, 3 hits, and 14 strikeouts. So the man was untouchable. He put on an absolute clinic. And I'm kind of disappointed I didn't really get to watch that game because it looked like one I would have loved to watch. Cleveland fell to the Tigers. They won this game, 2-1. Detroit had 2 runs on 5 hits. They did have an error. And Cleveland had 1 run on 4 hits with 2 errors. So that was your classic baseball game. However, in the 9th inning, Cleveland had the opportunity to win the game. I did see this little tidbit. Cleveland had the ability to win. But on a ground ball to the pitcher, they screwed up on the base paths late because, move on contact. I understand they being aggressive, but when it's a ground ball to the pitcher, don't try and score because you're not going to make it. And that's what they did. So clearly, Cleveland's not going to beat Detroit on that one there. Skubal showed why he is still one of the best pitchers in all of baseball tonight. Well, I guess this afternoon, but still. Game 2 was also another one that I didn't watch, really, because I was in a classroom. But I saw how it went. The Cubs topped the Padres 3-1. And on this one, I don't know who, because I know Cade Horton's hurt. Maybe I could probably get a hold of one of my Cub fan friends and ask him who the hell the Cubs have outside of Imanaga and, let's see, who was the official starter today for the Cubs? I know they have Imanaga. But my question is, who else would they have besides Shota Imanaga? Oh, I guess they have Matthew Boyd, but who started today's game. But Seiya Suzuki and Morel Kelly belted out 2 dingers that ultimately carried the Cubs to their first playoff win since 2017. I want to make a joke about that. I really want to make fun of the Cubs for this being their first playoff win since 2017. But then I realized the Brewers' record since 2018 in the postseason is not any better at a casual 2-10. So, yeah. I won't make any jokes about that. I am intrigued to see who the Cubs roll out for their starter tomorrow if they haven't already announced it. I am willing to bet it's probably going to be Imanaga because he is arguably their best pitcher. However, the third game of the day was the best game of the day, where the Red Sox, they beat the Yankees 3-1 in an absolute thriller of a ball game. And in this ball game, I'll say it, this was one where I was glued to my laptop because I use an antenna, so I was having to stream it. And so, because let's face it, cable be expensive. It do be expensive. So, the antenna and streaming is the way to go. You just gotta play it smart with your streaming services to know what you're doing. But, the Yankees, man, they let this one go. Their bullpen absolutely choked. Fried went 6 1/3 with only giving up 3 hits with no runs on 6 strikeouts. And then in came the Yankees bullpen. I got my first taste of actually watching Devin Williams pitch for the first time since he was a Brewer, basically, and I will say this. Hello, loud car. That's not what I was saying, but besides the point. I will say this. If you would have told me that back when the Brewers traded away Devin Williams, that they would be the Brewers would have been the best team in all of baseball to end the year, and Nestor Cortez and Caleb Durbin would have been the winning end of the trade when they sent away Devin Williams, I would have asked you what kind of drug you're on or how drunk are you. Especially considering the Brewers, Cortez really was a win because they were able to turn around and flip him for something later too. At the deadline, so... it wasn't a whole lot. They were still able to pawn him off somewhere, so yeah. The fact that Caleb Durbin was the win of that trade kind of speaks volumes of what happened with Devin Williams. Well, he didn't give up any runs. The man struggled to find the strike zone, and at times the Red Sox batters gifted him strikes by swinging at some really bad pitches. However, on the Red Sox side of things, after that 3-run 7th? Yeah, 3-run 7th. Which, when they said Nick Sogard, at first I thought for some weird reason I thought it was Eric Sogard, the Brewers legend, and then I realized, wait, there's no way he's still playing, he'd be old. But Garrett Crochet went 7 2/3 innings with only giving up the 1 run and 11 strikeouts. Now here's the cool part about the 11 strikeout part that he did. when it comes to the Yankees, well, in the history of the Red Sox, which is a very deep history, those 11 strikeouts he has was something that has not been done for the Red Sox since 1911, with 11 strikeouts in his postseason debut with the team. Last time that was done was 1911. It's 2025. Do the math. That was well over a century. And in the ninth inning, when the Rose Chapman really did his best to blow this. Like, he somehow revived his career to be in something, but did his best to blow it because he had bases loaded, nobody out, the Yankee fans on their feet going ape, just for them to see their team leave all the ducks on the pond and not push one across. To where the Red Sox survived in what was instantly one of the best baseball games of the young postseason already. It might even be one of the best games from this year's postseason. And the last nightcap game is not officially over as of the time when I'm making this, but I was like 8-2 in the 7th, so I'm going to say the Dodgers just absolutely belted their way past Cincinnati. The Reds pitching staff the Reds got in as that last wild card. I don't think that the Mets would have done any better if they didn't have that choke job collapse. I don't think it would have been any better. This game still would have been pretty one-sided. But with that being said, we're going to go on to one of the more talked about things from this last weekend. As we all know, Sunday Night Football, Americans spent 4 hours in front of their TVs to watch a 40-40 tie. It was the second highest scoring tie in the history of the NFL. I'm going to play you this clip by Matt LaFleur. This is the first time hearing of it too. I just casually saw it on Twitter and figured this would work perfectly. Because it's Matt LaFleur explaining the bizarre ending to that Cowboy game where the clock is ticking and it seemed to be like absolutely no urgency from the Packers, and for some weird reason, instead of Jordan Love throwing the ball out of bounds to stop the clock, did the check down, and yeah, it was weird. But this is Matt LaFleur on the that bizarre ending and that dumpster fire of a possession that the Packers had before kicking the field goal.
For not telling Jordan to throw the ball away if it's not there, and he throws the check down and then puts you in that situation. Once that has happened, what are the guys supposed to do? Because from the outside looking in, it didn't look like there was the urgency that was required.
The urgency that was required didn't happen previous to that as well, which gets into the process of we ran a play out of the 2-minute, and then we huddled up, and we called a play. We thought they were going to be in cover 2. They played man coverage. We hit Rome on a slant, and at that point is when, in my mind, it's 2-minute. We operated out of a different 2-minute formation. So I would say this, where we have to clear up the communication is when we're not in 2-minute mode and then you jump into 2-minute mode, everybody on the field has to know that. And they have to operate as such. And we were operating more of our, no huddle tempo, which isn't warp speed, whereas 2-minute is got to be warp speed. And it just wasn't, it's a bad look, quite honestly. And That's why you get a bad result as well. But it's just the communication and process have got to be cleaned up because we can't allow that ever to happen again.
As the quarterback, is he responsible for getting everybody, let's go?
I'm responsible for that.
Now, so Jordan comes off after the incompletion that leaves the 1 second left, and you're not ranting and raving and yelling at him, but you can see on the TV, you talk to him. So what's the message there?
Yeah, I don't even know because it was like watching a slow motion car crash in front of your face where I'm just looking at the clock. I'm like, oh my God, there's going to be no time left. I mean, it's a very humbling experience to go through that. And it's unacceptable, quite honestly. So, and there's nothing we can do about it now other than we better learn from it.
So yeah, on that being said, the easiest way to sum that up is he basically Matt Eberflused it. And he's lucky that the incompletion happened with exactly 1 tick left on the clock. Other words, they would have lost. And essentially, I'll say this. The Packers, they ended on that last drive and all that. That was, yeah, you were watching a car crash in slow-mo. What am I looking at? You as a Bear fan, I saw that time and time again last year. I am so glad I haven't seen that so far this year. But, well, I guess I have seen it again this year, compliments of the Packers, but still glad the Bears aren't doing that. Never thought I'd be saying I watched the Packers be like the Bears for the wrong reasons. But that's the easiest way to describe that. And every sports fan, everyone listening, who knows it, will know exactly what I mean when I say Matt Eberflused it. He essentially Matt Eberflused it. Now, these last 2 weeks, between the Browns game and the Cowboys game, so weeks 3 and 4 here, the Packers defense disappeared. The offensive line, I think this might be the worst I've ever seen a Packers offensive line. But that one we got. I'll give them that. Take that with a grain of salt because injuries is killing their O-line right now. But these last 2 weeks have shown exactly why the Green Bay Packers are not a Super Bowl caliber team. Just a couple weeks ago, I would have said they're Super Bowl caliber. Do they make it? I don't know, but they still would have been There's a difference between good enough to make they're Super Bowl caliber where you're in the conversation because you're that good, and then there's the Super Bowl teams that are just slightly above I don't know how to say it other than there's the Super Bowl teams that they're right there every year. They're always in it. There's the Super Bowl caliber teams where they're right on the cusp of getting to the Super Bowl, which is where I have the Packers. I still think they could be. Their defense is too good not to have them in that conversation. But then you got the playoff teams and playoff caliber teams, middle of the road teams, 20 layers of crap, and then there's the Chicago Bears. I basically just NFL basically did the Moneyball, but with NFL there, yes. But it's not wrong. But the Packers, now that we're getting back, it's all this circling together, they're not that good right now. Looking at what I've seen the last 2 weeks, like, okay, the 43-yard field goal by McManus being blocked to lose the game to the Browns, it's like, okay, that blocked field goal, well, Packer fans are complaining, saying they want their special teams coach or coordinator fired. It was a blocked 43-yard field goal where the Browns defense did their job, and then they read it right where you're actually kind of, Packer fans, you should have, if anything, should have been hoping it would have been a scoop and score, so you would have had another shot at getting down the field and scoring. Though I don't know if that would have helped the Packers much. But the blocked extra point, that one is concerning. Because that was a what the hell moment. It's also a really long 2-point conversion by Dallas. Impressive that they did that. But this week versus Dallas, as we saw at the 40-40 tie, that Packers defense became holier than the Swiss cheese. Fun fact, Swiss cheese is not actually full of holes, but we had to call it something. So we chose to call it Swiss cheese. But yeah, that was probably one of the worst performances I've seen. Up until the very end with that sack at the line of scrimmage, which I didn't realize if the quarterback got tackled at the line of scrimmage, it's a sack, but I guess would make sense. Micah Parsons, between the game with the Browns and especially up until that one sack against Dallas, disappeared. The player that you gave up your 2 first-rounders and Kenny Clark, which, Kenny Clark is useful, but not that useful for you, I guess. Well, actually, clearly he showed he was more impactful than Micah Parsons was in that game. So clearly, Kenny Clark's got a lot left in the tank. But all that money, that draft capital you get for Parsons, and he just disappeared these last 2 games. I think the Packers take on Jake Browning and the Bengals in Week 6 after the bye, which that game, I don't even think Packer fans are going to be disappointed if they miss that, because that's not going to be much of a game here. But now that I think of it, if the Packers are going to fire anyone, who would it be? Obviously, you have your front-running candidate. Yeah, we're going to get rid of the special teams coordinator, but guys, if you got to realize there's not going to be anyone better on the market right now, because if the performance is like what you saw gets Bisaccia fired, Tampa's got to fire their special teams coordinator. The Rams got to fire their special teams coordinator. All these teams that have been having blocked field goals and punts lately, all of them will be unemployed. Matt LaFleur, well, some people say, oh, we should get rid of him because he's not that good. That's the reactionary Packer fans, not the reasonable ones. They're just the ones that want the clickbait to look cool, like the IKE Packer podcast. That page is literally nothing but clickbait on on Twitter. It's pretty bad. Though reading the comments are hilarious. But there's always those clickbait pages. Which is why I'm saying, are the fire coach calls legit or just clickbait? that one's gonna be more depend who you ask. But from looking at from the outside looking in as a Bears fan, that ends up watching the Packer games because I live in Wisconsin, and let's face it, I think we can all agree, no matter what team you root for, at the end of the day, watching football is just meant to be fun with your friends. Who cares who you root for? But that Cowboy game, the fingers pointed at Matt LaFleur and Rick Bisaccia, which I think his name's Rick Bisaccia, but you get the point. And that last drive, the fingers pointed at Jordan Love because he screwed up royally. However, if you ask me, the Packers aren't going to fire anybody unless the rest of the season turns into the Dallas nightmare, the Cleveland nightmare. And if it's like Dallas and Cleveland, well, then you're also going to get rid of your defensive coordinator in the process too. But I would argue that they're all just it's just a bunch of clickbait. The Packers are a very, very well-ran organization. They know what they're doing. I wish my team that I root for was ran as well as the Packers, but the McCaskies decided to say not so fast on that one. However, I could waste an entire podcast on nothing, and I mean nothing, but why the McCaskies have screwed over the Bears and should actually take notes from how the Packers run their organization. And in the NFL world here, Tyreek Hill had a very gruesome injury, like he needed to have surgery for that. I cannot really, again, I can't judge that injury or talk about it much because I was at work scrubbing them dishes, pay my bills. But from what it sounds like, that injury was pretty bad. Obviously his season's over. Let's see, how bad was it? What else did they say about this? Because I know they were talking about how bad it was. Okay. Tyreek Hill announced 7 hours ago. Tyreek Hill announces decision on future after gruesome injury. Troy Aikman slams officials during Broncos penalty flag filled route. I don't think that would have made much difference, but okay. Yeah, the Bengals, they are nothing without Joe Burrow. But yeah, let's see. Tyreek Hill, according to Yahoo Sports, Tyreek Hill's decision after the gruesome injury is. Let's see here. The Dolphins. Yeah. It's probably something I shouldn't be doing on air here, but let's see. Oh, this is the thing this is a picture from Adam Schefter's Twitter feed here. Tyreek Hill's surgery is now complete and went very well according to his doctors. Per the receiver's agent, Drew Rosenhaus, who added another surgery will not be needed. It's about rehab, and he will play next season. The realistic goal is to start the start of the season. But it sounds like the injury he had on his knee, he's gonna try and Alex Smith return this, which is gonna be it's not impossible with modern medical sciences and everything, but it's gonna be hard. In the world of college football, I'm not even gonna be leaving the state of Wisconsin for these, but this is noteworthy, and I'm going to be paying attention to this on the weekend here. UWL is gearing up to travel to Whitewater in what I'm pretty sure is a top 10 battle in Division III football here. Let's see, D3 football rankings. I said D3 football rankings, not some sidebar. The D3 football rankings from D3 football icons, that just tells us where somehow college football's top 25 always comes from different places. Yeah, you got UW La Crosse as the 5th ranked team in America, taking on UW Whitewater, who is the 9th ranked team. It's going to be a battle of it is going to very much be a battle of when Titans collide here. This is going to be a good game. However, looking at this now too, with the top 25 rankings, Platteville's sitting at 7th, which means the WIAC has not 1, not 2, but 3 teams in the top 10. And just on the outside looking in of the top 10 at number 11 is UW River Falls, to where the WIAC here has 4 teams. 4 teams in the top 15. So half the conference right now is a top 15 team in America. So let's let this settle in on how good that conference is and how much fun conference play is going to be for watching it. I can see it now where I'm going to see something. There's going to be at least the one person in the comment section when this goes up on YouTube saying, oh, D3 is basically high school ball. No, it's not. No, it's not. Anyone who's played football can tell you the difference between that. D3 football is a lot faster paced than high school, because that's still grown men compared to high school kids. But, yeah. And then sitting at number 15 is UW Oshkosh. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams in the top 15 come from the WIAC. 5 teams. That's how loaded this conference is. And the craziest part is, somehow, some way, none of them might even get to the national championship, because they're all going to end up in pretty much the same part of the bracket, to where they're all going to have to lose to each other again, probably. I didn't realize just how loaded the WIAC is. But by the looks of this, they're loaded. They are very much a loaded conference. And now we're going to skyrocket here to the Division I level with, where are the Badgers exactly? If you want my answer on where the Badgers are at, I could tell you right now where they're at. They're in rebuild mode. That program is in full-fledged rebuild. You want to know why it's in rebuild? It's in complete and utter shambles and having to be rebuilt, because right now, the way it is, the powers that be at UW, and with the booster clubs down there too, they chose not to adapt to modern times. And in football, if you don't adapt, you die. So they chose to die because the hill they want to die on is We want to run it the way Barry Alvarez did 30 plus years ago in like 1990, which would be 35 years ago. You cannot run a Division I program the way Alvarez did in 1990. And the reason he was able to fix the program in 1990 is he figured out you have to adapt with the times. In this era of NIL, the Badgers and the Booster Club and all that, they chose not to adapt and cling on more to their high academic standards and then wonder why they can't win. While Fickle, he's bringing in these 4-star guys that you normally do not see come to Wisconsin. His problem is if he can't retain them, and it's not because they're winning, it's because they're receiving bigger paychecks somewhere else and lower academic standards. And the Badger fans screaming to fire Fickle? Put in the comment section, who's your solution? If you're one of the people who want to fire Luke Fickle, who is your solution? Put it in the comment section on the YouTube page, or if you're commenting on this on Spotify. If you're one of those people screaming that we should fire Luke Fickle, who is your answer and why? Tell me why your answer should be a valid reason, and I could probably tell you why it won't work. The people who are saying, save us Phil Longo, the college kid who had his phone with the thing that said, save us Phil Longo. He wasn't the answer. Phil Longo was not the answer. He served as the Badgers offensive coordinator, and yeah, I'm pretty sure he was the head coach that got fired. But he's not the answer. Over his time in Wisconsin, he was the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach from 2023 to 2024. And he tried implementing it. What you don't realize is, while you think Phil Longo will save you, he's the one who tried bringing this air raid offense and this style offense we have now. If anything, Fickle's running an offense closer to what here in Wisconsin, what you'll see on Sundays. Longo tried bringing it in originally. He got fired. He kind of also got in trouble with the law and all that stuff, I'm pretty sure too, but he's not the answer. The style offense you're seeing ran right now here in Wisconsin under Luke Fickle is the same style offense Phil Longo would be running. And he wouldn't be bringing in anywhere near as good a recruits. If anything, he's not the answer. His record, he doesn't have a winning record as a coach. The man can't win the games. He got fired for a poor performance on offense and not being able to win the big games. He was the one making those calls at the time. Now we know Fickle is, but it's not. Yeah. So ultimately, I'll say it. Firing Luke Fickle is not the answer. Ooh, it's 10-5 in the bottom of the 8th for the Reds and Dodgers right now, but yeah. Luke Fickle, these people that want him gone, you're spoiled, rotten brats. We've known nothing but winning seasons and bowl games. Just because we've had a couple of years where they haven't done it. And yeah, that loss to Maryland was bad, but right now the Badgers suck. because they're trying to recuperate and rebuild a program with people stuck in 1990. And they're stuck in the early to mid 90s. And until that changes, nothing's going to change. And this is where I'm going to log off so I can get some sleep. Until next time, and I promise you, it will not be over a month in between stays and in between episodes next time. I hope.